chat. Thank you. I love the chat. I saw a little bit about anime. Is there a traveling bridge? Okay, I think we just figured out a new book. Oh, the moving castle. This is great, great conversation. So,
Teresa, if I ever write that book, I will credit you for the idea.
I would love to make this book happen, so don't tease me, Chandane. I would love to do that.
This is the power of networking. Yes, we have a new book coming out, everybody who's watching this recording. I don't know if it's a year, 10 years, or 20, but we have it coming out. This space where we're able to share what kind of bridge we would be kind of, for me, ties us into what we're talking about today. This diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice is about being a bridge, and also being a bridge in the space of this real world that is so now infused with technology. And it's what we as human beings have brought into this place. I am amazed. We have a book, and now I think it's a movie. Is that right, Teo? Like, I am excited. So friends, if you are open to this, I'm gonna go ahead and share my presentation and go through it. My desire is that this is for you, and it's fully open. Engage at any time, raise a hand, unmute. That's the power of having such a wonderful, intimate group of powerful women and puppies. So I'm going to, Allison, can I share my screen?
Yeah, I just have to enable, I think, okay.
And if you have questions, like, please drop them in the chat. Sometimes I think when I'm sharing, I'll try to keep looking for the chat, but if anyone wants to unmute and say, April, this was said, this is asked, I want to add this to it, I would love to share that space. So I'm going to go ahead, yeah, we're going to go to present mode. Now, I will share with you that I am using very intentionally this term mindful. What I do when you talk about moonlighting, I've been teaching yoga, also encompassing elements of, meditation, since 2005, like, legally or technically. And so that's why I want to bring that into this space. We usually do things when we are intrinsically moved to do so. So giving ourselves the space to really be and feel and move in our being, I think really moves us forward when we're talking about equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice. So that is the intention behind using that terminology, a mindful look at diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can everyone see the screen okay? Here's our quick agenda, our introduction. We did that. Our welcoming and coming together. Oh, we talked about bridges. That was just such a wonderful bringing us together. We bridged. And now I would like to, dive into tech equity, the power in education, the immunity to change, mindful awareness, and language are some of the topics I'll key on. So technology and education. I'm so curious now that I have everyone here. I heard, a move from Atlanta to Pittsburgh for education. And this says equity, but when we talk about education, do you guys feel like there was equity in the education you received, particularly if you were educated in the tech space? And you can drop it in on the chat. There is a difference between equality and equity, right? So have you guys seen this imaging before, this graphic? It's shown in different ways. You could thumbs up, yes, whatever, if you have, or if you haven't. But that first, when we look at tech, we're looking at what many people consider to be a great equalizer, right? There's equality, and tech is it's fact-based, right? We have these algorithms, there's data, and we're working to make it real concise. Like computers don't think, and so there's a fairness in it. Oh, great! Thank you for sharing that. You use this graphic frequently, but you know, is it really? And so when we talk about bringing tech equity, we want to create this atmosphere here where everyone can see through, and it's okay how tall you are, how short you are, how wide you are, how colorful you are, whatever color it is, you know. There's another graphic where there's somebody in a wheelchair in that third space. So the idea that I graduated from high school in the 80s too. There was no equity. I agree. Reading the chat. Yeah, this idea that there is equity because technology in and of itself is a great equalizer, I submit is not really a true statement. Rural areas have little to no tech. There's socioeconomic barriers, there's entitlement. I have children who have Chromebooks and iPads in their school district. There are other school districts that don't offer that. So how are we really finding equity in tech if at the root of it, there is no equity? This book came into my feed when somebody saw that I was giving this talk, Black, Brown, Bruised, How Racialized STEM Education Stifles Innovation. Just the title alone is powerful. And I share that with you all if you want to look on the book. This book is drawing on narratives from hundreds of Black, Latinx, and Indigenous individuals. This person examines the experiences of these individuals and how underrepresented they are. You know, these students come into this faculty, they've come to a space that is not reflective of them. And they interview people who have a modicum of success in the tech sector. And they do extensive, McGee does extensive research and advocates for structural and institutional changes to address racial discrimination. I need to drink water. It's like a nighttime, right? We've been working hard. Stereotyping, hostile environments. In an effort to make the field more inclusive, they have been the front runners. And I submit, we haven't even talked about your stories. I'd like to hear your stories as we continue on. You know, as we come into these spaces, what experiences have we had as women of color, as women who come in with all this, you know, neurodiversity? It's been very challenging to succeed in these exclusively, usually all white academic and professional realms. And so when we look at what has happened on campuses and how that translates into the tech community in this professional space, the effects of racial battle fatigue, right, of gender fatigue, of the physical and mental exhaustion born in these hostile environments, that doesn't lead to equity in tech. We were at a PART conference and the conversation came up about who is giving the data, who's working at universities, who's creating the algorithms. These are spaces where people become gatekeepers. Oh, I love that, Tao. Tao shares, this is why I've been supporting Makerspace, which work to be inclusive like Prototype. And I helped to set up a Makerspace at Barack Obama Academy. Thank you. And we'd love to hear more about that and maybe be able to share that with the community as a whole. Yes, I will share my presentation. So education is the key to knowledge, right? Development, growth. Gatekeepers of knowledge are those who have power. Gatekeeping is a process of controlling, right? A gatekeeper holds that gate. So we talked about bridges today. We talked about that structure. I didn't even talk about a gate, you know, but gates, they open, they close. A gatekeeper watches the gate, at the toll bridge, there's somebody there, except I just went through toll bridges. It's all automated now, but they watch the gate. And it's a process that we kind of adopted. And I say we, our society, our American society, our European society, our educational society, we've adopted it where people are policing, they're acting as go-betweens, they're controlling access. That's the key when we talk about tech, controlling access from one point to another. They can refuse, control, or delay the access to services. They might oversee how work is done and whether it meets certain standards. Whose standards do they want to meet? So I submit that educators at the beginning have the power and that we have information that our students may not have. Leaders, we're educators. We educate our community. In our workspace, we educate others around us. We are in this to share knowledge. When you look at the budgets that are being given in education, there are more budgets being given to elementary through high school education than at the university level. The university level, this is a study out of Stanford. The university level, only 3%, in 2017, only 3% of tech industry's philanthropic dollars went towards college level and computer science programs. 66% went to K through 12. A lot of the money going into higher education and going to companies who are doing the research, they're coming from other companies, gatekeepers. And so, we also use language in our tech space. You're not a software engineer because you don't know how to do blah, 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 blah. Your programming isn't real programming because the programming should be or could be this. You don't have a degree, so you're not actually a blah, 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 blah. These are ways that we can really work to bring more equity into our spaces. And when we hear this language, what do we filter out? What do we bring in? We embody what we hear and we begin to really feel that. That's where that mindfulness work can help, where we can really create a space where we can step out. We're here to share knowledge. We're stewards of knowledge. We're not gatekeepers. And those in power would benefit to learn that we're stewards of knowledge. Stewardship is having a level of experience and taking responsibility for elevating others to the same level. That's key. You're entrusted when you have stewardship. You're entrusted with who is in your care. It's like a craft, and you're guiding others through a path that empowers them and entrusts them with the same. I don't know about you, but I would love to hear, after we finish, a conversation around where you felt like you were being gatekept and when you were invited in by somebody who was a steward. And then it's tech space, it's real important as we talk about people mentoring and people bringing more women, more people of color, more people who are diverse, neurodiversities. We want accessibility into our space, not only because you just want to invite people in, because that changes the tech community, that changes the data, that gives real data. So now when we're creating programs, when we're creating AI, when we're creating things, it's really based on the human experience. It's human-centered, and humans don't all look the same. Allison shared, this makes me think a lot about how technology has become so integrated in our day-to-day that education on using it is beneficial. It beneficially is not shared. People get left behind, and privacy, privacy has become a luxury. Oh, Allison, speak that. We're having a talk on the 27th on cybersecurity and the roles in cybersecurity. And that would be a good conversation to bring into that space. So I submit, and I don't just submit, there's this wonderful study on the immunity to change. Why are we not changing? If we know this, why is the system not changing? One, who has the power? Who's keeping the gate? Two, the immunity to change is really big. I'm going to speak in the chat. I'm currently interviewing elder computer scientists. I love that, to get stories on people in tech history. I love that. The bigotry came in later and we lost memory of our history. History is powerful. It's power in education. This immunity to change, I think this will speak to that. So Lisa Laskow-Lahi and Dr. Robert Keegan, they did a study. I am a consultant and an executive leadership coach. And I say that, and I've been doing it for a long time. I know everyone's a coach now, and that's good. It's space. I like it. But there's a real methodology, there's a real education behind it, and there's a real opportunity to support others in it. So there's this coaching model that focuses on mindset. And the mindset is the root cause of performance. So he did this talk in Canada, and I love it. I can share the video if you guys like, but he's like, hey, 14 frogs sat on a log and 3 frogs decided to jump off. How many frogs are on the log? All 14. Just because the 3 decided to jump off doesn't mean they jumped off. We make a lot of decisions to do things, and where's the gap? Where's the change? In our society, we've been making a lot of decisions. We're in, it's Pride Month. We had Juneteenth. We have all these initiatives to change things. And yet I submit any one of us will be like, where's the change? Women, we're still in this space. We're still making 80 to 90 cents to the dollar of what men are making. Why is there this change? And they did this study on cardiac patients coming out of the cardiologist's office. And they were told, you have to take this medicine or you will die. And they were like, okay, I'm taking the medicine. And they followed up, they were not taking the medicine. So when Robert Kagan spoke to a guy, he's like, hey, why are you not taking your medicine? The guy's like, what do you mean? Of course I am going to take this medicine. I have to take it. I'm going to die if I don't take it. I have to take the medicine. So he didn't answer the question. Why are you not taking the medicine? How often does that happen to us where we're not answered? We speak our question, we're not answered. But back to the story, the guy was like, listen, I'm not some old guy like my dad. I don't need to take medicine. Like, I'm not old and decrepit. It's not my time. His reasoning for not taking it was really primal, it was really deep. He didn't want to feel like an old man. And so he had this immunity to change. He didn't want to change because of that. And that mindset was way deeper than knowing he needs to change. So when we talk about change happening in the cultures around us, in our workspaces, in the communities we're engaged in, especially when we talk about this tech space, where are the immunity to changes and what are the deeper mindsets? And again, that's why I talk about mindfulness, because when we feel it, when we embody it, when we know it in the deep recesses of who we are, then we begin to shift. How do we bring that in? And as we are recipients of the immunity to change, how do we bring it into ourselves so we can navigate through it in care of ourselves and also in care of others? Stewardship. So making change that is sustainable. We represent what inclusivity can look like, even us in this call today, right? And so we share, we support, we don't gatekeep. And I submit there's this idea of having our voice so that we can bring it up. We can have the confidence, we can have the ability, we can have the inner work of justice when we take our time to ground ourselves, to feel it, to really tap into our own feelings, our own beliefs. How do we embody them? We do this exercise sometimes where we think of a stressful thing, or we intentionally stress ourselves. And you do it a lot with progressive relaxation, and you ball your fist up and you get mad and you tense up all your muscles, and then you let it go. And so bringing a practice like that in can help us understand, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Now let me be in care of myself. Let me be a steward of myself. so that I can offer the resources that I need to move forward. And in doing so, outreach to others. They might not always be able to handle it. We embody justice. We embody it. When a person or a leader is centered in their spirit expands beyond their environment and everyone in it. There's a book called Leadership Embodiment, and they talk about that. They show actual physical illustrations of how you look. If we're scared, sometimes we'll hover our shoulders over and we're kind of protecting our heart. And I don't know, like, do you have a CEO or leader or manager who hovers over and they won't look you in the eye? You know that person is embodying some pain. But when somebody walks in with their chest up and their shoulders back, the minute they walk in the room, they exude this energy. I'm looking at the chat. Kicking butt in computer science, women in computing at Carnegie Mellon University. Our culture is sexist and work to change the culture. Thank you. I can't wait to have even more of these conversations. I think sometimes it's unfortunate that those of us who are in these communities where where there is oppression, women, we're just honestly, like, we don't make the same amount. We can feel equal and we can walk in our authority, and we're still, as a whole, making less money than a man makes. And yet we are asked to do the work to bring our own selves up, and that's okay. How do we embody that justice? How do we take care of ourselves? When we talk about bringing equity in, part of it is coming forth in our own bodies with our knowledge. To embody something is an expression. It's an expression of, or a tangible, visible form of an idea, a quality, or a feeling. That's where that mindfulness comes in. Racism, sexism, white supremacy affects us all. If we're white, we're affected by white supremacy. If we're brown, we're affected by white supremacy. If we're, other gendered, we're all affected by it. It's a system that has really supported where we are now. And in our country, in the world, intergenerational trauma has left soul wounds for us all. And that goes deep when we're, again, talking about equity and tech, because who are the gatekeepers? Who are those making the programming? How long did it take a woman-led company to make these bras, right? Can I share this? I had internalized a lot of sexism and felt like if I wanted to step into a male-dominant space like tech, then I needed to know everything about tech first. Otherwise, they would try to invalidate me and think, I'm stupid. That's it. And what's interesting, we internalize that and we embody it. And then our perceptions, our thoughts are not our reality. And there are like case studies, Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart, watch it, read it. Even she talks about our thoughts are not reality. And so the mindfulness part comes, where do you detach from your thoughts? Where do you not attach to the thoughts and live and be in your own being? Thank you all for sharing that. Social progress. I always think of technology as social progress. Like the printing press came out, that was technology, that was social progress. Technology signifies progress. When the printing press came out, guess who wasn't allowed to read? Slaves were not allowed to read. They were not allowed to go to school to read. That was technology. We have countries today where girls are not allowed to go to school and the boys can go to school. How much equity is that? Where are they having the equity in tech? Their power dynamics. Stewardship is what we need in our society. The basic human needs of our citizens, who we are as citizens. Technology is to be human-centered, and we are all human beings. So the charge is, it does start with us. Justice and tech can start with us. How do we become more inclusive? Because we again embody what we've been taught. I know, talking about the 80s, how often would we use the word he all the time, right? How much in literature, it was always when you used a pronoun and you're talking in generalities, you would say he. And yet for a guy, he is like, yeah, I am a he, I am a he, I am a... After a while, you're like, well, I don't have a penis, I'm a her. And that's okay. I'm going to share this chat, and I love it. I recently had a young scientist tell me she felt isolated in her field and alone because she was not only the only female, but also the only Asian. She often felt like leaving her field because of the isolation. Her belief in herself drove her to get a PhD and lead a conference attended by mostly men. Embodying justice, it begins with you, and pulling back, right? Sometimes the pain are the pain points. Pain is a way to give you, it's a flag, it's information, right? If you hurt yourself, you have pain in your arm, you're like, oh, let me not use that, let me let it heal. Oh, I'm coughing, there's a virus that's come into my body, let me sit and rest and drink this tea or do whatever to heal. So we bring this to the forefront because, one, we ourselves need to heal. And that was a beautiful example of somebody who said, I'm going to step away from this, use that to leverage myself. And damn, she got a PhD. And then she led a conference that men were going to, asking her the questions. Justice and tech cannot start. It can start with you. One simple thing I suggest is it starts with language. The powerful, those in charge with authority and money, have always used their ideological power to shape thought and define what is normal, valuable, right, and wrong through language. It's a quote from Zuri Tao. Stewardship can be to use inclusive language to invite people in. Inclusive language is essential to help people who have been historically marginalized because of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, disability status, and or other aspects of their identity feel included. Using language is a great space to start. Oh, she was here in Pittsburgh, by the way, because Pittsburgh's badass, Women in Tech Pittsburgh. And you will recognize the internal oppression you give unto yourself when you start listening to your language. There's this, in yoga, there are yamas and niyamas, and there's a himsa. And Courtney's familiar with this. It's cause no violence. It's non-violence. Cause no violence to others. Cause no violence to everyone. Cause no violence to yourself. How much violence do you cause in yourself? I'm so stupid. I'm just an idiot. Damn, why did I do that? Oh, obviously I'm dumb for feeling this way. You hear all the violent language I'm using? The language doesn't have to reflect what is true. Notice I didn't say that, usually if that language is used, you feel bad, like something has happened, you've suffered a blow, there's a hurt. Acknowledge the hurt, be in the pain, but cause no violence to your own self, right? It hurts. I'm hurting right now. Let me take some deep breaths. Why do I hurt? This happened, that happened. I'm struggling right now, which is just a thought, a fact. Why are you struggling? I'm struggling because I couldn't get this programming code, or I couldn't do this, or maybe not couldn't, I was challenged and it didn't come off the way I wanted it to come off. Redirect the language, invite people in when we're talking about inclusivity. I love this quote by Bell Hooks. Dare I speak to oppressed and oppressor in the same voice? Dare I speak to you in a language that will move you beyond boundaries of domination, a language that would not bind you, fence you in, or hold you. Language is also a place of struggle. The oppressed struggle in language to recover ourselves, to reconcile, to reunite, to renew. Our words are not without meaning. They are an action, a resistance. Language is also a place of struggle. I landed on this a few months ago, and you can ask the team, like I've been like divvying this out to everyone. So Northwestern's IT staff are now expected to utilize inclusive language in work-related conversations and documentation. So all Northwestern IT staff are expected to use this language. And this is an outlined list of approved, commonly accepted alternative terms to replace oppressive terminology. And this is great. Northwestern's IT team, anyone on that team looking to propose additional alternative terms or replace an oppressive phrase, they can submit a request at any time using an online feedback tool. And even the staff are expected to review and utilize the university's language inclusive language guide. That's power. That's inclusivity. That's what it looks like. They use tech to reshape tech, and it's all in the language. Like Scrum Master, right? Don't say Scrum Master, like a master's a master, right? And for some people, they don't think of it in that way, but their lived experience is different. You know, you didn't have a master over you in a plantation. Call it an agile lead, call it an agile program manager, call it an agile coach, call it an agile, you know, all this other language that you can use. There is, did we talk about that? I think we talked about white hat, hacker, ethical hacker. Like a lot of terms, blacklist, blocklist, deny, deny list, but we use the term black and we tie that in. A black hat is a hacker. Well, some people whose brown skin, race is a construct, right? Like my mother she was very light. People didn't know if she was Puerto Rican or white or black, but we had to identify her race as black, even though her skin wasn't as brown as mine. Just that term, that term black can bring up these oppressive negative feelings. There's new language that we can use, you guys. And I just think it's powerful that a whole university, their IT team has done something this innovative. This is what justice looks like. This is what equity looks like. This is what inclusivity looks like. This is making the fence see-through for all. What support is necessary? It's practicing equity, bringing it to the table. When the ideas and strategies of the marginalized people are elevated, it empowers everybody. It empowers everybody, even those who think they're in power and those who really are in power. Lift people up, bring people to the table. And have, you know, the new thing is like, I don't want to just come to the table. Like, let me bring my wood and build a table. Come to my table. Let me share with you my perspective and my perception of it all. This is real important. We went to the PARC conference, and is it participation for the advancement of responsible technology? The piece sometimes I get wrong, but we talked about these things. You know, people were there from CMU, from Pitt, Department of Defense. There are people from everywhere. And we had this conversation about AI, about data, like who's in the room, who are creating the programs, who's delivering the data. There is a police department, local, won't call names, and a university, won't call names. The university created this AI technology using data from the police department. And it was in a response to where should we send our officers to, like, it was a way to kind of work out the scheduling and figure out like, how are we effectively using our staff, right? Well, partnership. Thank you, Courtney. Partnership to advance responsible tech. So this police department was given the data to the group at the university, which it was a federally funded project. And what happened is that the data they were given it was biased. We arrest more people in this township, in this borough, in this side of town. They didn't say what they are arresting them for. Parking tickets. Like the list of what people were being arrested for did not equate to them needing a higher police presence, which in turn created more arrests. Responsible technology, respond to the bias. So my friends, success begins with you. How do you ensure that you're successful? I submit taking care of yourself, finding those pockets of time to be mindful, to rest, to sit and understand how you feel and understand your being and how you want to move outside of all of the external noise. And then bringing practices into yourself where you can balance it all. And whatever that looks like for you, balance looks different for each and every one of us, but taking the time to allow your nervous system to reset, because you literally will be in fight and flight all day long if you're not able to take yourself to a space where you can be who you want to be. And then your stewardships, you create safe spaces for yourself and for all. You're relatable. Your story can be a witness to somebody else. We can connect. We can even connect to those who don't have our same story or know our same thing. We're all human beings. We all have fear. We all have joy. We all have these emotions that are common to all mankind. Look at the top of this conference. This picture where you see Zuckerberg and others, notice the color of all of those individuals, top CEOs of some of our top tech companies. Look at this conference right here. That's a major tech conference. I don't know how many people of color you can see. Very few in this tech conference. This one over here, I don't really see any women. Let's reframe narratives, friends. Look at this tech group. Look at how colorful and how happy and how beautiful they all are. Reframe the narratives. That narrative, we all tell stories. Our whole humanity is based on stories. Every story about life, every origin story is a story. Religions are based on stories, and it's beautiful because it helps us. It's our language, right? Well, how can we create these new stories? How do we take the story that you shared where the woman heard these stories and was isolated and didn't let that be her story, her narrative forever? She's changed her narrative. I'm going to go move forward in my education. And then I get to create my own story. So that is why it's important to have this conversation, because tech is about humanity. Honestly, it is. And although we think it's a computer, it's an iPad, it's a phone, it's AI, it has infused every single part of our lives. And that's okay. That's okay. But how do we take ownership of our own selves and change our narrative? And that's what I wanted to share with you all today. So I open the floor for discussion, engagement. I love the chats. Oh my gosh, you guys shared some really powerful stories. And we can keep it recording, or if you want to end the recording, you can.